Welcome to the Run for God Run Club, where you will find God in a runner's space.
Welcome to the Run for God Run Club. This is your one stop each week to be motivated and inspired to get off the couch and onto the running trail where you can, in turn, inspire others to do the same. Let's learn, laugh, and leap into running together, giving God the glory for what we are able to do in His name. Amen. I am your running host, Dean Thompson. Whoa, have we got some good stuff for you this week. And joining me once again, of course, is Run for God founder Mitchell Hollis.
Thanks for having me, Dean.
If I sound a little funky, I've got this little head cold thing going on, and so I may sound a little different today.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, you got a little bit deeper octave today.
Yeah.
Probably singing the bass this weekend at church.
All right, that'll be
bass
good.
Section of the choir.
Yeah.
So we're fresh off a graduating race for the 2021 Couch to Marathon group. That was incredible.
What a great day it was.
It was awesome. We're going to talk about it a little bit more here in a minute. I know we're probably, as of the time this is being aired, we've talked about it in other places, but we're going to talk about it again because it was that cool, right?
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you, one of the things that I think about with that is that was such a great day, and it was just fantastic. But it's going to be even bigger next year with the new group that we've got. Yeah. And that's so amazing just to think about. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it.
Yeah. Before we get into the details, now we've got a lot of people joining us maybe for the first time on this podcast. If you own a business and you would like to partner with Run for God, we have a few opportunities to do just that. We have our corporate partners. And if you're interested in that, if that's something that interests you, send an email to runlanehollis@gmail.com. That's my oldest son, Lane. He does all of our corporate partnerships. He'll get you all the details. But this week's partner is Jess Burgess with the housing market at a recent high. Having a reliable framing crew is essential. Someone who is honest, do what they say they will do, and someone who will get the job done with excellence. Jess Burgess Framing Company has all these qualities. So if you're a developer or contractor in the North Georgia area, give Jess a call for the best framing crew around. Jess has done our work for many years on the construction side. Incredible guy. All of his staff is just incredible. So, the biggest thing I hear out there talking to people about building, and we've got a lot of friends who are trying to build houses right now and things like that, is getting good, reliable contractors and subcontractors. And Jess is one of those. Now, he's staying pretty covered up right now because of that. But just an incredible guy. Thanks to Jess for all their support and supporting Run for God.
Yeah, if you're in any kind of construction at all and you do a good job and you're reliable, you're going to be busy.
Well, it's funny you say that because I've told my kids, I've told them this for years now, but really now I say, with the way our society is now, when you get older, I don't care what you do, whether you go to college or you don't go to college, if you will show up on time and do what you say you're going to do, you will stand out.
Yeah, it's true. You
will stand out because that's kind of fleeting our society nowadays. And Jess is one of those guys. He's there when he says he's going to be there, and he does what he says he's going to do. And that's what sets him apart.
That's great. So we share a Facebook post usually every week, and this week we have one from Shirley Rivera Mackley, and it says this. This is a photo journal of my journey through this couch to marathon experience. Had a blast, but I will not lie. It hurt. 26 miles in 82-degree Florida weather is not the most fun, but God is so good. I have had a lot of surprises in 2021. 2 sons just got married. What a huge blessing to gain 2 beautiful daughters. Found out we are expecting grandbaby number 4. I had a major and sudden job change in April. Worked out, but very stressful. In July, I suffered a sudden cardiac event. I had an end-stemmy heart attack. I am not the one in the family with heart problems, so this was a huge surprise. My doctor said I could still run and train for a marathon. However, I needed to take it slow. I take medication to keep my blood pressure down. I was diagnosed with SCAD, spontaneous coronary artery dissection. God has blessed me with health and strength to complete this challenge. Thank God for my amazing Run for God team. They all, every single one of them, have blessed me more than they will ever know. So often we hear about people who have one of these problems that she has, just one of them.
And it takes them out.
Yeah. And she overcame one after another. And it's so awesome to see that.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken now... Shirley, if I'm mistaken here, which I don't think I am, I'm horrible with names. We're both horrible with names.
Yes, we
but
are.
I think many of these ladies came to the meetup.
Yeah.
On the day before the marathon, and man, this was a lively group of ladies. I think there was several of them in one group, if it's the group I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
But yeah, congratulations to everybody
for sure
who crossed out, because the conditions were not the best. Many of you came. I mean, Jean Marcy was there from Alaska, where it was negative temperatures when she left, and come down to run in the 80-something degree heat. That's hard even when you're used to it.
That's right.
And so that made it the obstacle even higher, but it made the finish line even sweeter. So congratulations to everybody. It was incredible.
I don't think I'm one of these people. I don't like to stand in one place. I don't idle well. I have a hard time standing in one place. I ran the marathon. And so my legs, I just want to sit down. I want to lay down. I want to do anything but stand up. And we stood on those bleachers for literally hours watching people come through that finish line. And I didn't want to sit down. I'd sit down for a minute or two, and then I'd get back up because I just couldn't stand it.
Well, you finally figured out that every time you sat down, a Run for God runner was coming through. So you finally started saying, well, I'm going to sit down and maybe another one will come through.
That's true.
But yeah, I'll talk about this a little bit later, but that's the first time I've ever stood and watched a race like that.
Yeah.
Usually I'm either working or I'm participating. Now, sometimes I watch my son in triathlon, but a running race, especially of that size, that was really cool just to get to stand and watch and see. Talk about people watching.
Yeah.
I mean, you see all. That's the thing that is really the picture of running, of a marathon.
Yeah.
It's not one body type. Yeah. It's not one ethnicity.
That's true.
It's not male, female. It's not one age. I mean, it was incredible to see the diversity of people there, and it was just a lot of fun. I was flat worn out when I got home.
Yeah, and the other interesting thing too is watching the different personalities come across as well, right? Because some people are real, they're showy, and they want to throw their arms up and they want to get excited, and that's awesome. And then there's other people who they walk across, they get across the finish line, and you can just see the look of satisfaction in their face. Yeah, and
I saw one guy do a heel click. Yeah, that's got to be pretty hard after a marathon.
I can't imagine it. My goodness.
Maybe he didn't go hard enough.
Maybe
That's
not.
my suspicion.
I don't know. But he went as hard as he wanted to, I guess. All right. So we had a trivia question last week. And here was the trivia question. What is it called when you run the second half of the race faster than the first half? And it's called Not What I Did at Disney. Nor did many people do that at Disney. But when you run the the second half faster than the first half, it's called a negative split. Now, a lot of people probably already know that. We've talked about that, I think, before. Jeff Joseph loves to post online when he runs negative splits and say, I did a Dean, which is awesome. Because I run most of my runs are that way. I like to finish faster. Of course, the older you get, the harder it is to get going. And after 2 miles, I feel way better than I did during those first couple. So, but a lot of world records are set with negative splits. But it's not the easiest thing to do. First, it's not easy to hold back in the first half, but then to push yourself so hard the second half that you got to pick it up. Because what happens in a race is 95% of people in a race are going to slow down during the race. And so while the people around you, if you're going to run negative splits, while the people around you are slowing down, you have to have the wherewithal to go, I'm not slowing down with them. Because the psychology of your brain is, well, as long as I'm with the same people, I'm doing fine. But if they're slowing down, then you're obviously not going to run a negative split, which again is not the be all end all, but that's what it is. So yeah, it's I like to do it on purpose in training. If you do like an interval workout, maybe you're running, I don't know, running 12 times 400. And I like to finish my last 4 faster than the first 8 because it gives me confidence and makes me feel good. So that's kind of a negative split situation and a way to really boost your fitness when you do that kind of thing. So
yeah, and it just feels good to finish faster than you started. So
it does. All right. So it's not too late to start the Couch to Marathon Challenge, is it?
It's not. No, we're actually, as of the time this is airing, we're just starting week 2 of the Couch to Marathon or the 5K Challenge. Some people are just here for the 5K Challenge, the first 12 weeks of the Marathon Challenge. But, we always say that you can join this program really into the first few weeks of the program. So if you're out there listening and you've heard us talking about it and maybe you didn't get signed up, maybe you procrastinated and you feel like you're too late, you're not. You're not. We've been at this for a couple weeks now, but actually the first week was just walking and recruiting and just kind of taking it easy. Our first real week of training was just this past week, and it was walking and running or walking and walking faster. But yeah, still plenty of time. Hop on runforgod.com, get signed up, sign up for the Couch to Marathon 2022 in the training tab. For all of you who are in the program right now, today the Marathon Challenge gear goes on sale. So we have the hoodie, the t-shirt, and the hat combo. Those were very popular last year. We've been having people asking about them already, so they are out. They'll be for sale for 3 weeks. That's kind of a limited edition series that we do. So they went on sale this morning. So hop on runforgod.com, go to the store and check that out. I'm sure you're going to like it.
Yeah, for sure. And listen, I'm going to talk to a particular group out there because I've been getting emails from people who say there's no group in my area. Well, one of the people that recently that I got that message from has actually done some coaching and stuff in the past and has taught Bible studies. Well, you know what my answer was.
Well, if there's nobody in your area, then you're the person.
Start a group.
Yeah.
Start a group. So if you're out there and you're a little bit frustrated that there's not a group in your area, here's the truth. There are a lot of people out there just like you who are wanting a group, but there's not a group in my area. And so it just takes one person. And here's the thing, it's not hard. It's not hard just to start a group. Even whether you do the class or just start a group to support one another that just does a workout each week. You can do either one of those.
Yeah.
It can be as simple or as complicated as you want it to be, as in-depth or not. And so I would challenge those of you out there who are looking for a group to go ahead and try to start your own group and see if maybe you can get some traction there.
Yeah, and I just actually made a note on my handy dandy strikeout list here. We're going to remove the archived classes from that map because it is a little bit confusing. That map represents all 6,500 or so Run for God coaches in the country or in the world, but it doesn't necessarily represent people who are leading groups in the Couch to Marathon. Yeah. So we're going to remove those. So if you're one of our coaches and you get on there and you see that your name is gone, it's just simply because you don't have a class going or you're not about to start a class, because having all those archived names on there is a little overwhelming. You know, we may have a fraction of that who are actually active right now. So we're going to keep the active ones on there so that it's a better picture of what's going on right now. So if you are a coach, you see your name's gone, you want to start back up, it's as simple as us turning your flag back on for your community. So just know that. Yeah.
And one thing that I want everybody out there to know, we had a number of people over this past year that just ran a marathon who went through this program on their own. It's doable.
By far the majority of the people
That's right.
did it that way. Yeah.
It is doable. And
because you're not on your own.
That's the
Facebook group, I get tired of saying it. I mean, I don't, but I do. It's worth the price of entry because it's so incredible. All the new people are on there right now saying, I can't believe how supportive this group is. To be a Facebook group. Facebook have, with all of its fallacies and problems, this is where it shines.
Yeah.
So I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, that's okay. I mean, it's a good point. There are people there that are doing it with you at the same time, and I mean, the resources are there to have the support that you need. Now, they may not be face to face, but that's okay. Because I guarantee you that some of it is face to face. We just had somebody not long ago drive to somebody else's to help them get through a 20 miler,
right?
And then that person finished a marathon here recently, right? So
Brian and Elizabeth drove to meet them.
That's right.
That was pretty, and that's all organic. That's the stuff that just happens without any prompting from the Run for God headquarters here. It just happens because that's the people who are in this club.
And so we've got some folks. We got a few people who are just they're anti-Facebook. And listen. If you're 100% get it. But boy, oh boy, that group really is special. Sure. And if all you do is get on Facebook just to go to that group, I feel like it would be worth it.
Have the bookmark on your phone. You can create an icon on your phone with a link. Have it linked straight to that page. Yeah. To where you don't even go to your homepage. You don't go to see what anybody else is doing. It goes straight to the Run for God Run Club Facebook group. And so, yes, you're on Facebook, but you're not out there in Facebook. You're in this closed group that we moderate very closely. We monitor very closely. There's no filth. There's no, language. We really keep it focused on what we're all there to do, and that's to encourage each other and to help each other through both our faith walk and our fitness walk. Yeah,
it is awesome. It is awesome. All right, but let me say this. Now you can get by without the Facebook group.
Yes,
because our videos there are YouTube videos that you can watch when you want to. You can go through the emails to watch those. And so you don't have to be part of the Facebook group, but I feel like you're missing something if you're not part of the Facebook group. Sure. So up to you, but that's just our opinion. So we are sponsored by J Radio, which is the world's greatest digital music platform. Have you listened to J Radio yet?
Social media?
Nope.
Grocery store tabloids?
Nope.
The newspaper?
Not usually.
The national news?
Are you serious?
Is there any media source these days that only shares a positive message? A lot of the media we take in each day can be pretty negative. Why not make the decision right now that your music will only be positive? Sign up for an account at jradio.com today and download the app in your app store with music for every moment and entirely positive Christian message. It'll be nice to hear things going right for a change.
All right, so we're back, and I just stole Dean's thunder. I brought us back in before he could bring us back in. Hey, what about let's dive into a little bit about this past weekend.
Okay.
It was incredible.
It was incredible.
And
what's your favorite story of this weekend? Do you have one?
I've got a lot of stories, but I think probably my favorite event was not the race. It was the meetup the day before the race. Yeah. And, that's what we say about, the Run for God weekend in April here in Dalton is it's not about the race. The race is just something we're all going to do. It's about getting to meet all these people. You mentioned Jeff Joseph and, all these people that I had known their names. I knew their faces. Many of them I'd already heard their stories. So when you actually get to meet face to face, it's like, oh, well, I know you.
Yeah.
But then there were a few that I had never met. I had never heard of. They're the quiet crowd.
Yeah.
On the Facebook group. They're on there.
Yeah.
And they're watching and they're listening and they're learning, but they're just not very vocal. And we had many of those people come up and I'm like, where have you been? And they're like, well, I've been there. Quietly.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And that's one of the things, anytime you undertake anything like this whole Couch to Marathon journey that we took over this past year, is you always wonder what kind of impact are you having? And I gotta confess. So we're there at the meetup. It's like 6 minutes after the time that we were supposed to meet. We had 8 or 10 people there. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, this is nice. And then you look up 15 minutes later and there's like 50 or 60 people there.
Well, I think we figured out we had close to 75
okay.
there.
All right. Yeah. Just a ton of people that showed up.
Yeah.
And that's when you realize that all that stuff that you do, all the work that you put into trying to do the right thing, it was all totally worth it.
Well, and the work we try to do in creating a community, it's not a running club.
Yeah.
It is in name.
Yeah.
It's funny. I say in name only. We're going to talk about that later, but it is. It's a run club in name, but it's so much more than that. It's a community of people who, I mean, I've read this past weekend some people struggling with health issues and asking for prayer for family members, and you're not going to find that on Nike Run Club. You're not.
Nope.
The running conversations on Run Club, I would say it may make up half.
Yeah.
But the rest is life and struggles and accountability and encouragement and all the things that just makes you feel good.
It really does. Yeah.
So, the meetup was probably my number one thing. But you know what my number two was?
What?
And it's probably fighting for number one. The day before the marathon, I was registered for the marathon.
Yeah.
And I decided that I did my walk a few weeks ago so that we could be at the finish line. I knew if I walked, I wouldn't be at the finish line for the majority of the people. So I wanted to walk. So I had this bib, and I went and got my packet, paying that much money for registration. I'm going to go get my goodies.
Yeah.
And the day before the race, my 15-year-old son, Landon, who does run, but his longest run is
12 miles.
12 miles. He kind of informs everybody that he's going to run the marathon the next day. And we had joked about it coming down there, because number one, it's not something I would push to do because it's, from a training standpoint, it's probably not the best idea.
Yeah.
The only reason I allowed it to happen is he's 15. You're not really going to hurt those guys. But he just announces he's going to run the marathon.
And he did.
And he did. and he had a really good time.
He finished,
yeah. But the funniest part about it was he got done, and because he wanted to go through all the parks, and the marathon went through all the parks.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we're on the way home, and I'm like, oh, Landon, you're in for it. I said, running a marathon, then hopping in a car for 8 hours. Tomorrow morning, you're not going to be able to move.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sitting in my office the next morning, and I can differentiate my two boys by how they come down the stairs. They've got a different rhythm of coming down the stairs. And I thought, well, I'm going to know Landon coming down this morning because it's going to be boom, boom, boom. And so I'm sitting in my office, and I hear bump, 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 right down the stairs. And I'm like, well, that's not Landon. And he walks through my door, my office door. I'm like, are you not sore? He said, yeah, a little bit. Dean, my first marathon, I was walking down the stairs backwards.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it hurt so bad. But that just goes to show you, it was a slap in the face of my age at this point. But yeah, kudos to Landon. That is not something we would recommend again, but Landon does run quite a bit. And the most important thing is it's something he wanted to do.
Yeah.
I did not push that boat because, number one, the best way to get Landon not to do something is encourage him to do it. And plus, it's, full disclosure, is probably not the best idea if the longest you've ever run is 12 miles to run a full marathon. But like I said, the next morning he was just bouncing down the stairs. So
that's a great story.
Yeah, the whole weekend was just incredible, inspiring, and it couldn't have been at a better time with us starting the new group on Monday night, the day after.
Yeah.
And all those new people were kind of already in the queue, in the run club, and kind of in there filling out. They got to see firsthand what they may look like in 12 months. And so it was awesome.
Yeah, one of my favorite things was the fact that when we were standing on those bleachers, we stood on those bleachers for the last couple of hours of the time limit because we were looking for some specific people who we knew were out there. And we knew they were struggling because they had some split times, and I won't go into all the details, but we just knew they were struggling.
Yeah.
And we so wanted them to finish before the time limit. And just watching each one of them come through just right there at the end was just incredible.
Yeah.
It was just incredible. So If you're out there and you're participating in this next year and you've never done a marathon before, understand that a good portion of our folks, they finished in that last half hour of the time limit. I mean,
and there was a big percentage who they had never ran.
Yeah.
They were truly the couch to marathon people. Yeah. And I mean, it's just, and it was really cool to see. One of the people we were waiting on was Shannon Coker.
Yeah.
You know, Shannon was in the very first Run for God class. Obviously, his wife is Miss Gay, who works with us, who many people listening know. But Shannon is the one that he's worked at it for years and years and years and come up slowly. And, man, it was just so cool to see him and to see the emotion from these people. Yeah. Shannon, we got to see firsthand because we saw him. Yeah. He came up to us right after the race. Most people we didn't see after they come through the finish line. For good reason, they're probably ready to go sit down somewhere. But Shannon come up and just the I mean, he was on the verge of breaking down, and it's because it's such a big accomplishment. It's in the running community. It's kind of the pinnacle. It's as far as the distance goes. That's the crescendo of what you go for, and it's just there's so many illustrations there for life that you can use, but it overwhelms people. And that's what really struck me that I don't get to see often. You know, I go to like lanes races, and most everybody's mad when they get done because they're 3 seconds off their PR. But a marathon like this is so different because it's the finish that's the most important thing. And it was just really cool to see.
Yeah.
We could talk about it all day, but we can't do that here.
We sure could. All right. Hey, don't forget to check out Thursday nights. Thursday night, we get on Facebook Live and we answer questions. We usually go over some kind of topic or whatever, but we also answer questions. And so if you've got questions, don't be afraid to tune in and ask that question, because if you've got it, somebody else probably does too. All right. Have you ever used the phrase, it's just and then insert a word there? We all have, but sometimes God has a sense of humor about it. And this week, there's a story here called Just a Sprint. And it comes from Rhonda Williams, who been a Run Club member and a
household name. Oh
my goodness, yes. And she's written a number of stories.
Yeah.
And they're always good. And this one's just as good as the other ones. So here it is. I decided to participate in the Dalton Sprint Triathlon. I was training for an Olympic distance try, and the training was going well, so I thought it would be a piece of cake and might be fun. After all, it was just a super sprint. The race turned out to be anything but just another try. I had a sleepless night 2 nights before the race. The next morning, my husband and I drove to a coffee shop to meet our running group for the usual Friday morning run. But as we pulled into the parking lot, it hit me. Gastrointestinal distress. Oh no, the coffee shop wasn't open yet, so I started running with the group, praying the whole way. I made it through the 4-mile run, with the last half mile being a sprint. I felt awful the rest of the morning and just wanted to take a nap, but there was no time. We were leaving for Dalton at noon, and there was a lot to do. By noon, I was feeling better, and my stomach seemed to have settled down, so we hit the road for Georgia. I had high hopes for a good race. It's just a sprint, you know. The good night's sleep tonight, and I'll be fine, and I said, well, I didn't sleep that night either, and was in a fog the next morning. I was definitely not thinking straight because I had forgotten to bring my usual pre-race breakfast and had to settle for a day-old muffin that we had picked up the night before. It's going to be fine. It's just a sprint. I set my stuff up in transition and thought I was ready. We said a prayer and I got in line for the swim. I jumped in and started swimming, and it seemed to be going well until my cap started to slip off. I grabbed the cap with the plan to just tuck it into my tri-top to keep swimming, except that I forgot my goggles were on the outside of the cap, not underneath it, so they came off too. I had no choice but to stop at the end of the lane and put them back on. When I finished the swim, I climbed out of the pool and ran to transition and tried to put my helmet on. It felt odd and I couldn't get it on securely. What in the world is going on with this helmet? My husband was yelling at me from the sidelines. I thought he was just cheering me on, so I kept fidgeting with the helmet, trying to figure out what was wrong. Actually, he was trying to tell me, you've got it on backwards. What a rookie mistake. I felt like an idiot, and I lost more than just a few seconds in T1. Finally, the helmet is on correctly, the shoes are on the right feet, and the bike is off the rack. I'm ready to ride. The ride went okay, and so did T2, thank goodness. I just have to run 2 miles, and I'm done. No problem, right? It's just 2 miles. Well, it was the slowest 2 miles I had run since I first started running, and to add salt to the wound, the skies opened up and it started pouring during the last mile. This was no gentle rain. I felt as if the angels had dumped a giant bucket of water on me. I tried to sprint to the finish, but the illness and the lack of sleep had drained my energy and I just had nothing left. I am an experienced triathlete, but I probably looked like a first-timer to anyone watching that day. People were cheering for me as I crossed the finish line, but all I could think was, oh, shut up, I did horrible, LOL. I will never say it's just a fill in the blank ever again. I will prepare for each race as if it's the most important race of my life. This experience made me reflect on my spiritual life. How prepared am I for the events of my day? How often have I minimized something by saying it's just a regular Sunday service. It's just another Bible study. It's just lunch with a friend. It's just my daily devotion, giving myself permission to just skip it. Not the right attitude. You never know when God might decide to turn just into awesome, ordinary into extraordinary, turn what seems like work into opportunity. He may choose to speak to you in that regular Sunday service in a way he has never before. He might provide an opportunity for you to minister to someone in that ordinary Bible study. Your friend might really need to talk to you that day, not just someone, but you. That daily devotion might have the answer to a problem you didn't even know you had yet. God has a way of using the ordinary, regular things in our lives to teach, strengthen, correct, and use us. It's never just another day when you're a child of God. The Bible is full of stories of God turning the mundane into the miraculous and turning the ordinary lives into extraordinary ones, like when God spoke to Moses through the burning bush. That event not only transformed Moses' life, it changed the future of an entire nation. And when the angel told Mary she would bear the Son of God, can you even imagine? That day, the course of human history was changed. So next time you're tempted to brush it off because it's just another fill in the blank, remember, God may have a plan you aren't aware of yet, and ask Him to show you opportunities. Look for God in the ordinary and get ready for the extraordinary. Instead of trudging through the mundane days in your life, greet each day with great expectations, because you just never know.
I remember that day well.
Do you?
Yeah. It's the only time we've ever had rain in the triathlon, and boy, did it rain.
Yeah.
Do you remember that morning?
I do.
We thought we were going to have to cancel it.
Yep.
Because it was just absolutely, you looked on the radar and it was red.
Oh, and stuff was underwater. It had rained so hard.
Yeah, we finished on a AstroTurf field, and the whole field was an inch deep. And it was so crazy that literally 15 minutes before we were to start, it's like you looked on the radar and that red just parted. It was literally like the Red Sea.
Yeah.
And it parted just long enough for us to get it started. And the lightning never came back. But man, the rain, I think that's the same year Darren went down too, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is.
Broke his collarbone.
That's right. Yeah.
I remember that day well. But I never knew this story. That's why we need your stories.
That's exactly right.
Something was going on with Rhonda that day that you and I had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's all around us all the time, right?
Always.
People, and this just underscores the point that she's making, is that often when we just see somebody that we see all the time, we just think, well, I'm just saying hello. Well, you know what? Sometimes just saying hello, you may look into that person's eyes and realize they need more than a hello.
Sure.
And I think I'm sure we miss those opportunities because we all know we struggle, and So we walk by somebody who doesn't know we're struggling, and we say hello, and we keep moving, and we
smile.
Yeah, because everything's great, right? But it's not.
Right.
And Scripture, Luke 5:4-7. When he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into deep water and let down the nets for a catch." Simon answered, Master, we've worked hard all night and haven't caught anything. But because you say so, I will let down the nets. When they had done so, they caught such a large number of fish that their nets began to break. So they signaled their partners in the other boat to come and help them, and they came and filled both boats so full that they began to sink. Man, they probably thought they were just out fishing, right?
Yeah. I love this part because I think so many times, at least for me, maybe nobody else listening, but I have a feeling it's a lot of people listening. We make the argument, but Master, we've worked all night and we haven't caught anything, and we stop.
Yeah.
But the point here is that it's okay to have that sentiment in your mind. But they kept going and said, but because you said so, I will let down my nets. That's where we've got to learn to get to. We're going to question God. We're going to question God. But the real breakthrough is when we get past that question. It's okay to question. I mean, that's our human nature. But we've got to learn to get through and trust, and that's where faith is grown, is in those moments like that.
Yeah.
That's where faith is grown.
And the problem is we're looking for what we want and what we think should happen. And just like this triathlon for Rhonda, she was expecting to go to a triathlon and everything work out great, and it didn't.
Right.
But look at this wonderful story she has,
sure.
Right? I mean, God used this in such an instructive and beautiful way, and that was not a great day for her, at least in her mind. Probably thinking back, she may think that it was, but it didn't go the way she thought it should go, and that's the way we are all the time. We think, well, it didn't go the way I wanted it to go, so it was bad.
And that's where she learned.
Yeah.
That's where she learned, because she looked to God in that instance, and it's the same thing with Simon here. You know, he fished all night. It didn't go the way he wanted, but he looked to Jesus, who just happened to be on the boat with him. And how cool would that be?
Yeah.
But the point is, he's always in the boat with us. We may not see him, but he's always there. And when we turn our focus to him, the good things happen.
Yep. He will fill our boats to overflowing. Another scripture, Matthew 4:18 through 22. As Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon called Peter and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. Come, follow me, Jesus said, and I will send you out to fish for people. At once they left their nets and followed him. Going on from there, he saw two other brothers, James the son of Zebedee and his brother John. They were in a boat with their father, Zebedee, preparing their nets. Jesus called them, and immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. That's what we're called to do. Mm-hmm. We're called to do what he asked us to do. And the truth is there's a lot of instruction in that book. Mm-hmm. If we'll just pick it up and read through it and flip it, and we'll learn what we're supposed to do. And a lot of times, like in this case, I can't imagine. I think about these guys, these fishermen who, and the other guys as well, the ones that weren't fishermen. But I think about how Jesus just said, "Come and follow me," and they did. Imagine how awesome the presence of Jesus had to be for them to agree to do that. That feeling,
because they weren't out just recreational fishing. This was their career,
right?
That they were just leaving on a whim.
I mean, can you imagine you're on your job and this dude comes by and he says, "All right, here's what I want you to do. Leave what you're doing. Don't come back and just follow me, and we're going to go do some stuff."
That's a miracle.
I mean, isn't it crazy?
Sure.
I mean, it's just great to think about. Yep. And a lot of people, I think, non-Christians, look at that and they go, well, that's kind of impossible. Nobody would do that. Why would anybody give up their career and go follow somebody to someplace they don't know where they're going?
Yeah, but, some will make the argument, because I have too, things would be a lot easier if Jesus actually came up and said, "Follow me." That we kind of make that argument, even though it's a completely illegitimate argument. But we kind of make that argument. Well, if it were Jesus that were coming up and saying, do this, a physical body, then that makes more sense. But then we go into the next verse that Rhonda's got here.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Well, I think when you look at this in context of her story too, sometimes that just thing, just follow him.
Sure.
That's another way to use the just thing, and that's simple. Mm-hmm. It's simple, right? It's simple to pick up that book and read it and find out what I'm supposed to do and just do it. Mm-hmm. Simple.
It's really simple,
but it's hard.
Yeah.
And that's where we struggle. Just like these guys having to leave their boats and just picking up everything they've got, their whole livelihood, and going, all right, I'm gonna put my trust and faith in you. It's amazing. So Genesis 12:1. The Lord had said to Abram, go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you.
And this is my point. There was no Jesus at this point. I mean, there was a Jesus, but he wasn't walking the earth calling people to follow him. This was the God of heaven.
Yeah.
And Abraham is being told. Abraham was a wealthy man, he probably had a nice setup for that day. It wasn't, he had many livestock. He had many friends. He was a wealthy man. He had it all going for him. Mm-hmm. And the God of heaven said, leave.
Yeah.
Leave. To me, that's even more miraculous than the others that we hear where Jesus walked up and said, follow me.
Yeah.
This is a guy who, by all appearances, had everything.
Yeah.
And he wasn't even told where he was going.
That's incredible.
I mean, at least, Peter and the disciples had a person that they said, follow me, and you kind of got a little directions, but just go.
Yeah. Just
start walking, pack everything up and start walking, and I will show you where you're going. But that power is still present today. People get that today. Thomas and Paige, who in our church, who you've met, I mean, she was a doctor, and he was a high school coach, and God said, go to Africa. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I have never been called in that way, but I hope that I would do exactly like Abraham or Thomas and Paige or the disciples did, because it's obvious that the power being spoken is just undeniable.
Yeah.
But we get those requests, and so many times I'm busy, or I can't, or we use the pronoun I, and it's not about us, it's about him. Yeah. And that's where, just like we talked about in I think the last podcast, people say with the Christmas story, that was impossible. Yeah, exactly. It was. And so many things that he calls us to do is impossible, but he can make it happen.
Yeah. This goes back to the point, and something that we talk about all the time is getting out of our comfort zone too. Mm-hmm. And the Facebook post that we read just a little while ago, talking about going through all of these trials, sure, and just continuing on with what she knew she had before her. It's the same thing with following Jesus. Jesus is, if you look at him as a metaphorical finish line, mm-hmm, to be, that's what we're called to be, more like him. Mm-hmm. If we'll just relentlessly pursue that path, regardless of the comfort of our circumstances, it's going to turn out great. And that's what I think they're saying here in these scriptures. Question 1. Have you ever been caught off guard because you said it's just and didn't prepare properly?
Probably you more than me.
Yes, that's a fact.
Because I do tend to prepare, but yeah, I mean, all the time it happens. Yeah. You think you just kind of dismiss something, and then you get into it and you're like, oh my goodness, this is way more than I thought. Yeah, it happens all the time.
Yeah. It's every home improvement project. I mean,
Yeah.
every home improvement project you do, it's like, that's going to take me 2 hours. And 6 hours later, you're like, man, that took longer than I thought.
You know, that's why my dad always told me growing up, you know, he taught me how to quote houses and to figure. But he always told me with remodeling, you do the calculations, you figure out what it's going to cost, you count the cost, you do the materials list, figure out the labor, and then you double it.
Double it. Wow.
Double it. Because he said it's you think it's just another job, but remodeling is never, home improvement is never what you think it's going to be. It's going to take twice as long and cost twice as much.
Yeah, I think about this in the context of this Disney marathon. You know, I thought, well, it's just a marathon. It's just 26 miles. I mean, God gave me a talent to run. Mm-hmm. Running is not a big deal to me. Running 26 miles is not a huge thing for me. But then you don't prepare for it, you know, which I didn't. I mean, I ran every day.
Yeah. And
I ran plenty of miles, but not to do it the way I wanted to do it.
Sure.
And so consequently, you know, by the time I got to about mile 16, I was wishing I had done a few more long runs.
Learning the error of your ways.
Yes, I was. Yeah. She mentions in here that this idea of being caught off guard because of saying it's just another whatever, that it happens in church. Mm-hmm. You know, that we go to church and we don't expect God to show up. We don't anticipate him showing up in a big way because it's just something that we check off the list every week.
Sure.
And that's dangerous. And I mentioned, I think last week, I mentioned that a friend of mine who he gets on his knees in a particular spot in his house every week and prays for the service because he's so intent on wanting things to be, for God to show up. And that's the expectation I think we should all have, right? Whenever we go into anything.
Sure.
Another question. Describe a time when God turned your day from ordinary to extraordinary. Well, I'll go back to the story. This was another marathon story. Mm-hmm. I was running the 2013 Myrtle Beach Marathon, and I had prepared well for that one. But the week before, I got really sick. I was so sick, as a matter of fact, that I thought about not even going, but I decided I'm going to stop by the doctor's office on the way, go get a shot, and maybe I'll feel better by the time race day comes. And so that's what I did. And I got there, and I felt okay. I didn't feel bad. And that race started off, and, you know, I had a particular pace set that I wanted to run. And I was running that pace for that first 10K. I was running the pace that I wanted to run. And there were a couple of guys that had come by and we talked a little bit, and then they took off. And so I was sitting in third place overall in the marathon at this point, which was pretty cool. But then the 7th mile, I ran too fast. But it felt like I was still holding back. Mm-hmm. And so the 8th mile, I tried to calm myself back down, and I still ran it that fast. And then the 9th mile, and I was running, and it felt so easy. Mm-hmm. And I went through the first half and felt really, really good, and then actually ran the second half faster than the first half. That negative split we were talking about a little while ago. But not only did I get a negative split, I caught the leader with a half mile to go and passed him and wound up winning the race. I wound up running 6 minutes faster than what my goal was. Now, for a lot of people, they think 6 minutes is not very long. But 6 minutes, when you're talking about the difference between a 2:45 and a 2:39, is humongous. Mm-hmm. And that happened that day. That was one of those days where my day just went from here's my expectation to oh my goodness. It was, you know, I don't know. Have you ever had a time like that where things just turn out?
Yeah,
so
I think we do so many times. But I think the most important thing is you gotta allow yourself we hear the Henry Ford or whoever said it, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right. It's okay to go in thinking you may have a bad race, but you allowed yourself to change your mind.
Yeah.
You started feeling good, but so many of us would say, no, it can't be going this good. I'm not going to let it go this good. I'm going to force my pace back down because this is the way I'm supposed to feel. And so many times that happens when God is working in our life. We say, no, it can't be going like that because I say this. It's like the story we've read where the lady runs up to the red light and she has it in her mind she's turning right. And God was saying, no, turn left. And she argued with God. No, I'm turning right because God, this was my plan. This is how it was supposed to go.
Yeah.
But she finally let God take the wheel. She turned left and she wound up running into a lady that needed help.
Yeah.
And that's where the difference comes in. It's just like we question God. It's okay to have our own way. It was okay for you to go into that race thinking this isn't going to be a good race, but you got to leave yourself room for things to change.
Yep.
And that's so foreign for me to say because I am one of those people that when we start this, it's going to go as we said it was going to go.
Yeah.
And so I struggle with that more than anybody, but we've got to allow for God to step in.
Yep.
Because we know that that's where the magic happens. But so many times we're holding on to those reins so tight and we're forcing that horse this way when sometimes we just need to let go and we look over there and boom, there's God.
Yeah.
Or boom, there's a winning finish at a marathon.
Yeah.
But so many times we let what we think going into something dictate how that goes.
Yeah, that's true. And it works the other way too. I see so many people who maybe they go into a race, for example, and they feel good. They feel like they're very, very well prepared, and then it doesn't go well.
Sure.
And they beat themselves up and they feel terrible and they make it out to be a terrible experience when in reality, just like the story here, God may be illustrating something. Mm-hmm. And so we need to not beat ourselves up and we just need to take what God gives us, whatever that is, mm-hmm. good, bad, ugly, whatever it is. We just need to take what God gives us and be thankful for it. Like it says in James.
And we can only do that when we are obedient.
That's right.
When we're in His Word, when we're talking to Him, when we're asking Him questions, that all those things can only happen then.
Yep. Question 3. How do you prepare for each day? Will that change now? Hopefully we all get started with God before we get our day started. Because I think that's the best way to start. Now, some people prefer to do some quiet time and things later in the day, but I feel like starting the day that way is important. And I've mentioned this quote before on here, Martin Luther's quote, and so I pulled it up this time so that I could quote it exactly. He said, "I have so much to do today that I'm going to need to spend 3 hours in prayer in order to be able to get it all done." Mm-hmm. The idea that we should cut our prayer time short,
or cut it out, because we've got too much to do. And Martin Luther was just the exact opposite. It's like I've got so much to do that if I don't spend more time in prayer, I'm not going to get it all done. And so, I love that mindset. I just love it. I listened to a message last night at church, and I had a funny feeling that God was going to work this into this podcast today. Because, sometimes you hear things and you're like, God is making me hear this loudly for a reason. Of course, I help up in the youth on Wednesday nights, and we had kind of a guest speaker last night. He's one of our pastors at our church, Brandon Strange. But he came up and he spoke to the youth last night. And I'm going to kind of compare. I want to compare what he said with some of the questions we get or the sentiments we hear as Run for God coaches. You and I have both heard the comments, well, I'm a runner, but I no longer do it. We've both heard that, and we hear things like, it's just too hard. It's impossible. I have bad knees, or I don't have time.
That's the big one.
We know we hear all these comments, and so we push back a little bit. We ask the questions like, well, do you do your workouts? Or did you do your workouts? Did you follow a plan? Did you listen to your coach? I see you on social media all the time. How do you not have time? We start thinking those things. And then we ask ourselves as coaches, we start to think these things in our head. Many times we don't say it. We say, well, are they really a runner? Were they ever really a runner, or were they just a runner kind of in name only? We know that runners follow a plan.
That's right.
They get their workouts in.
Mm-hmm.
They listen to a coach. They make time to get out on the road to run. It's important to them because they're runners, right?
Right.
So Brandon's point last night was kind of this, but I'm going to replace runner with Christ follower here. Wearing the name Christian should indicate a few things. Just like runners follow a daily written plan, a Christian follows a daily written plan, and it's in the form of the #1 best-selling book of all time.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible, God's work, God's word, God's playbook. A real runner gets their workouts in even when they don't feel like it, just like a real Christ follower gets in their daily time with God, even when they don't feel like it.
Yeah.
Runners talk to their coach. The people who are really serious about, you get emails and texts all the time from people asking questions because they're wanting to know more. They're wanting to understand this thing that we call running, and they seek your advice just like children of God talk to their Father. Real runners and avid walkers make time to fine-tune their craft, just like Christ followers find time to strengthen their relationship with God. And here's the kicker. Real runners understand that it's the tough seasons that make us better, stronger, faster.
Yeah.
Just like Christians hold on to the promise of James 1:3, and it says, "For you know that the testing of your faith produces endurance." But it's what Brandon said at the very end that just, man, it's like God just slapped me upside the head. I'll kind of back up. If a person is calling themselves a runner and comes up and says they do none of the things that we talk about, what do we often kind of say to ourselves? Mm-hmm. Are they really a runner?
Are they really a runner?
You say you're a runner, but you don't do any of these things.
Yeah.
You don't get up and go run. You don't follow a plan. You don't listen to a coach. You wimp out if it's hard. So are you a really runner? But Brandon looked out at these young people, and it just gives me cold chills to think about it because he just did it perfectly. And he said something like, many claim to be sold out followers of Christ. They come to church every week and they love to talk about Jesus. We've had people who love to come to Run Club and talk about running. But then these people, they admit that they never open the Bible and read God's word, and they complain when things get hard. They never bow their heads and talk to their coach, the one who created them. And then he said, I would like to say to all these people, all the people out there who claim to be followers of Christ, but they never open the book, they never get on their knees and pray. He said, I don't believe you. And man, that just made me sit back in my chair, because that is some hard truth to hear.
Yeah.
But it's some hard truth that we need to be saying. So how does this tie into Rhonda's story? That's when I read Rhonda's story this morning, getting ready for this, I thought, wow, well, there's the tie-in right there, God. This is where God had this. For some, we may be followers of Christ in name only. There's people out there who love to talk, come to church, but they never open the book. They never get on their knees. And if that's you, if you're being convicted right now that I'm an imposter, I'm a Christ follower in name only, then go to runforgod.com/peace with God. We've got a page there built there just for you. But for everybody else, maybe we're just slacking. We're followers of Christ, but we appear that we are not because of our actions. You know, Rhonda is a seasoned triathlete, but that day, in her own words, she looked like a triathlete in name only. She even said it.
Yeah.
You know, during those few hours, Rhonda was a seasoned triathlete living like a non-triathlete. And when you equate that to our spiritual lives, that can do lots and lots of harm. When we as Christ followers are living like the world, you know, we're self-professed followers of Christ, but we're living like those who have never encountered him. You know, it's why God gave this group of people in Revelations a very specific name. He called them the lukewarm church.
Yeah.
And he said to these people, because you're neither hot nor cold, but lukewarm, I will vomit you out of my mouth. And I don't know why God just kind of laid this on my heart, because I think there's a humongous percentage of people. I will put myself in that category at times, the second category, the lukewarm, because I think as believers, we all can slip in there.
Sure.
But there's a huge percentage of people who are Christians in name only, or we've slipped into the lukewarm category, both of which are terribly harmful. Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know why he laid this on my heart this way, but I feel like somebody out there may need to hear this, because there's been times that I need to hear it.
Yeah.
You know, you're acting like a rookie here.
Yeah.
And I need to hear that. And boy, Brandon he really laid it on these kids last night, and it was like you could just crickets.
Yeah.
In that room, which usually you don't have crickets in a group of teenagers. It's all chitty chatty, but they were tuned into what he was saying, and it rung my bell.
Wow.
That we need to be, if we're going to call ourselves Christ followers, just like if we're going to call ourselves runners.
Yep.
We need to be doing all the things.
That's right.
And as Christ followers, you can't be effective. You can't get stronger, faster, leaner in your walk with Christ if you never open up the training plan. And yeah, I'll just kind of end that there. I'll get off my soapbox for just a minute.
That's a good word.
While you're working hard to keep your body in shape physically, the music you listen to while you run can help keep you in shape spiritually. We've partnered with J Radio to put together a group of running playlists by Dean, Lane, Holly, myself, and others that you hear here on the Run for God podcast. Plus, you can listen to a playlist put together by members of Run Club just like you. Check out the whole station of Run for God playlist at jradio.com and in the J Radio app.
All right, so we're back. We keep talking about this marathon, but it was really a magical day. Disney knows how to put on a running event, don't they?
They do.
My goodness. I tell you.
That is a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, because you worry about it because you're inside the park, so you don't have a whole lot of regular spectators out on the course. Mm-hmm. There's a few places where there's a concentration of them. But, you know, if you go run a lot of marathons, there's people all over the course that are going to try. So you don't have that. But what they do is they take their employees in the parks and they show up early and they're out there in the parks, you know,
which is thousands of people.
Yeah.
Just employees of Disney.
Yeah. Just cheering you on and just being uplifting and positive. And so, yeah, I was amazed at how many. I noticed that the further I got into the race, the more workers I saw. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure that a lot of them didn't want to get up at 5 a.m. when the race started. But by the time we got through, it was there were a good number of folks out there.
You know, it's funny, and you said this too a while ago, and so because of this story, I know that people are listening and they're thinking that's just crazy. But you mentioned that you were talking to some guys in the Myrtle Beach Marathon, the race that you won. You were talking to some guys during the race. Yeah. And Lane and you're going to have to excuse me because I can't remember who he was talking to, but he was talking to one of the ladies that was there to run the marathon. And Lane had run the half marathon that morning, did really well. He got 5th overall at the Disney half marathon, but he was talking to this lady, and he said, Dad, I just kind of got into my zone when I was talking to her, because you know Lane, he's just like you. It's you start talking about a race, you start getting down to the nuts and bolts and the mechanics, and you know, it's things that are way over most people's head. And he was telling this lady, about the race and how it was unfolding and the strategy. And he said, for the longest time, the race was shaping up. It was Lane and about 4 other guys that ran the majority of the race together. And he said, and we were like outside the first 10K, and we were all just talking and having a good time. And he said, and our pace slowed down at one point to like a 5:45. And he just kind of blew right by that. And he said this lady started laughing at him.
Yeah.
And it's like, do you understand what you're saying? It's kind of the same thing with you. You're in the lead pack of a race, and you're just carrying on a conversation. So I thought that was really fun. I think she really thought it was funny that, there's people out there, I'm not one of them, you are, that you're running to win these races, and you're carrying on conversations during that. I thought that was really a really funny story.
It was interesting. One of the things that I thought was interesting about the Disney Marathon was it was really clear that each park did their own thing. So they probably, whoever sets the course up, they probably had a task force at each park.
Or a competition.
Yeah, maybe it was. Yeah, might have been. But because they would use, you can tell, you get in one park and they use one type of cones or one type of barrier. You get into another park, it's a whole different type of barrier. And you would think most races, people set things up similarly. And all the outside of the parks was all similar. When you got into the parks, they were all different. Yeah. And I just thought it was fascinating. I can't help but think about some of those, because a lot of when you ran into the parks, a lot of them would say like welcome to the Magic Kingdom, and it was cool to hear. It sounded like they had some pride,
sure,
in where they worked and what they were doing, and that was kind of cool to see.
Yeah,
but of course it was, most marathons start at 8 a.m. and I crossed the finish line before 8 a.m. That was really weird.
That was an early wake-up call for y'all.
Yes, it was.
What, did y'all get up at 2:30?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
It was early. 2 days in a row.
Early day, yeah. Yeah, because even the 5K, the 10K, the half, and the full all started at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
And it's because they want to get everybody out so they can open up the parks. But, it was pretty – when Lane finished, it was still dark.
Yeah. That's right.
It was a very early morning. I'm still dragging from this past weekend.
For sure. All right, it's a time for Dean's Thoughts, and that's a time when I share something that I've written about the intersection between running and faith. So I thought I would reflect a little bit on the race this weekend. So this one's called Reflections on the First Couch to Marathon. There were so many stories at Epcot in the culmination of a year-long journey. As we stood near the finish line, there were so many Run for God marathoners coming through that we missed many. But we also saw many, too. In the end, we discovered that the Couch to Marathon program definitely works. Let me go over some highlights from the weekend. The meetup at Lake Louisa State Park was fantastic. It's always great to be able to meet the actual people behind the online personas. From Mary Priolo's year-long countdown.
Forgot about that one.
To Jeff Joseph's eternal optimism, and so many in between. I had a great time talking with many. The only problem was that I didn't get to talk with everyone. If you've ever been on the Facebook group page, you know that the group is a super supportive bunch. In real life, they're no different. There were some good performances out there on the course. Ben Reed and John Sandifer. I'm talking to you two in particular. I'm certain there were many more, but I didn't get a chance to talk with many after the race. I believe John ran a 29-minute PR.
Wow.
Yeah. We ran the gamut. Our first finisher finished in 2:58, and our last finisher was very near the back, coming in just after the balloon ladies, clocking a 7:09. We had a large bunch cross the line the last half hour before the race. Many of these were people who stepped out in faith to try something really hard, and they did it. Speaking of the balloon ladies, who knew that in a magical place like Walt Disney World, there were a bunch of evil ladies breaking up the back of the pack? If you fall behind the balloon ladies, you have to get on the bus and your day is over. We had a few who succumbed to them, but my favorite part of that story is that none of them were upset about it. They gave it their best shot and it didn't work out, and that was okay. No embarrassment warranted. No matter how you measure it, it was a successful day. For all of the great stories that were out there, I wanted to focus on one in particular. Shannon Coker began this journey over a year ago, having never run more than a half marathon. From the beginning, he was faithful to the plan and followed every workout. There were times when it was tough to get those runs accomplished after a long day at work on his feet, but he did it. He stepped to the starting line prepared to get to the finish line, nervous, but ready. The first half of Shannon's race went well, but like most marathons, there was a point when the wall would rear its ugly head, and it showed up at about 18 miles. But he had worked so hard over the past year, mentally and physically, that he was not going to be denied. As we tracked him on the tracking app, we knew that he had slowed way down over the last 7 or 8 miles. The app predicted his finish time, and we began looking for him at that point, but we knew that it would be later than that prediction. We waited for a long time. I've been there. I know what it's like to struggle, but to want to find that finish line in a marathon. I knew he was hurting, and in a way, I was hurting with him. The anticipation of seeing his red Run for God shirt coming through the finish line was grueling. Of course, if it was tough for me, how much more difficult was it for Gay, his wife? Eventually, there it was. The red Run for God t-shirt I had so desperately wanted to see. It was glorious, and tears filled my eyes. I was overwhelmed with a tremendous feeling. The pain of the drive for the finish was over for him. He could and did raise his hands in victory. Yes, I said victory. You see, officially, Shannon finished 10,278th out of 11,317 finishers. But he is a champion. Oh, there may have been over 10,000 people who beat him to the finish line, but he wasn't racing against them. He was racing against any doubt that may have existed in his mind or even in others' minds. He was racing against the effects of age. He was racing against the overpowering fatigue. But he was racing with determination. It was the same determination that let him check all those workouts off the list. But Shannon was racing with God. And in the end, that's what made all the difference. Something struck me at the park where the group met, and while we spent hours at the finish line, the people in our group are so diverse. We hail from all over the United States, and the people crossing the finish line were even more diverse. I can't help but think about heaven. It's going to be a diverse place. People from all walks of life joined together for one common reason, one common Savior. It's not unlike the bonds that join us together as a group striving for a finish line. One common goal that unites us. If you are planning to strive for that finish line in 2023, congratulations. You just joined an amazing adventure. If you're up for it. If you haven't joined us, you're missing out on something special.
Wow, if that don't make you want to sign up right now, I don't know what will. That's well written, Dean. I didn't get to that story this morning, and I was talking about Shannon earlier in the podcast. Yeah, I mean it was, and we kind of focused on Shannon because we know him so well. He lives right here. His wife works with us, but Shannon represents the majority of Run Club.
Absolutely.
And I mean, I almost got choked up just hearing you say. Because when we saw him, we were all just like glaring down that finish chute, and it's like, boom, there he is, and everybody's like, going crazy. That is a picture of heaven.
Yep.
That's my hope that's the picture of heaven.
Here's a question that just hit me. Are we looking at the people that we meet that we know are not Christians?
With the same anticipation.
I mean, what if...
Unfortunately, not like we should.
Yeah. I mean, I had just got through running a marathon myself, and if I knew that Shannon needed me at 24 miles to run the last 2 miles with him just to get him to the finish line, I'd have done it. Mm-hmm. It would have been hard. It would have hurt like crazy, but it would have been totally worth it. How much more worth it is it for us to get to those people who we know don't have a relationship with Christ and bring them to the finish line?
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because just yesterday, if we could have went out on the course with Shannon, Disney won't allow you, but if we could have went out there with him, we'd have probably went out there and rallied around him and run him in, just like we do with the last finisher of when we were doing the half marathon. We'd send all the kids out to run in, and that's the other part of the picture. I had a guy yesterday call me, and he said, "Hey, I'm worried about," and he gave me a person's name, and said they're really struggling in their walk, and it would probably mean a lot if you reached out. And man, I mean, as soon as I got that call, I was like, yeah. And I called the person and reached out, or I sent an email to the person, and we should always be on the lookout for that. I thank God that somebody called me and let me know this, but we should have that same eagerness with everybody. We should be looking for those opportunities, just like we're sitting there looking for Shannon to come out of that crowd and through the finish line. Well, you know, that's what the finish line looks like on the heaven side.
Yeah.
But on this side, it's trying to find out where Shannon's at and let's go run with him.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that's pretty convicting that that's exactly how we need to be living our life here. The finish line in heaven's already set up, and the people are already standing around it.
Yeah.
Our job here on earth is to go make sure everybody gets to the finish line. And so many times we don't. We, for whatever reason, we don't.
And I think about the emotion of the situation, because it was really emotional to see Shannon come through that finish line.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really, because I had doubts that he was going to finish because it had been so long.
Yeah.
And he really, really struggled that last 6 months.
It was hot. I mean, it really got hot for those latter finishers.
It did. And so I was so worried that he wasn't even going to finish. And all that work he had done wasn't going to pay off. And I think about how emotional that was for me, just on the outside looking in. And I think that we don't get that emotional about somebody who's not saved.
Sure.
But boy, shouldn't we be just as emotional and just as passionate about that? I don't know.
Or the people who are saved, like we just talked about, and are getting lukewarm.
Yeah.
They're stepping off the course and taking a seat.
Yeah.
We need to be just as passionate about those people too.
Yeah.
Because just like in a race, if you're running and you see 10 people over there sitting down on a bench drinking iced tea, you could cause other people to step off the course.
Yeah.
And so we need to be watching out for that too.
Yeah.
Great story, Dean.
Yeah, thanks.
If you've ever participated in any sport, you've probably met a great coach. Great coaches inspire us to do more than we ever thought possible. You can be the leader that helps others achieve things they never thought possible. You have the ability and the opportunity to be that person. All you need is a heart to help people and the ability to follow a plan. The Run for God 5K Challenge will come ready to help you inspire those around you. The step-by-step guide will direct you how to plan, pray, and train people both physically and spiritually. You can help them become more fit in their health and in their walk with Christ. Share your passion. Go to runforgod.com to find out how to inspire others to accomplish big things.
All right, we're back. So next year, in 2023, we're not going to Disney.
Nope.
We're going to the Big Beach Marathon. And I'm going to go down there in a few weeks, and I'm going to go ahead and run that thing a year ahead of time.
You're going to preview it for everybody.
We're going to preview it. Yeah.
Yeah, we partnered with Junction 311 Sports this year. They put on the Big Beach Marathon as well as the Cannonball Half Marathon, which we're going to be using as our half marathon graduation for those that can come. But yeah, I mean, Mike over at Junction 311, I told him, I said, next year we're going to have a lot of walkers, and can you do anything for us on because they have a 7-hour cutoff too. I said, is there anything you can do for us on that? And they're actually going to allow the walkers and any slower runners that may be worried about hitting that 7-hour mark, he's going to let them go an hour early, start their times, and you're not going to get Disney to do that.
No.
But Mike and all the team over at Junction 311, they've just been over backwards for us so far. I think you're actually going to have Mike on here in the next month or two. Mike's got an incredible story.
Yeah.
That he's going to come on the podcast and share with everybody. But kudos to them for kind of really help us out with this new group of people, which are the walkers. And we talk running a lot, but for those of you who don't know, maybe you have been living under a rock, but we've kicked the door open to walkers this year, and walkers have their own plan in the Couch to Marathon. Yes, you can walk a marathon in under 8 hours.
Yes.
You can. A lot of people will. I've done it.
Yep.
And so it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Fantastic. Yeah, I'm gonna go down there and I'm gonna run that marathon. And I'm supposed to run a marathon this Saturday. So I just ran one this past Sunday. I'm supposed to run one this Saturday with one of my athletes. So it'll be a little bit slower. It won't be that go as hard as you can.
You better hope
thing.
Riley's not listening to this.
She's going to take advantage of me, I'm sure. And then again, the Big Beach Marathon. So 3 marathons in a month after not getting prepared for a marathon.
I mean, that's smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't endorse that.
No.
Nor do you endorse that.
No, I don't. Not at all.
But you're doing what you need to do.
Right.
You're taking one for the team and kind of charting out the course for us, and we appreciate that.
And you know what I say? When you're dumb, you got to be tough. All right. Trivia question for this week. This one's simple. So there are, I believe, 6 what they call marathon majors out there. And I want you to name 4 of them.
I think I could do this.
Do you think you could do that off the top of your head?
I can, yeah.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So name 4 of the 6 marathon majors. And you can send the answer to dean@runforgod.com, and we'll send you a goodie. Some kind of something cool.
I think, I can name all 6.
All right, every week I share a reason why running is so awesome. And this week, because of what we just went through, it is the Couch to Marathon is possible. We saw it. We couldn't say that definitively until we saw it with our own eyes. We know now that people can go from not running at all to a marathon in a year.
It's like God's just buttoning this podcast up, because you know what He just brought to my mind when you said that. What was our attitude in the fall of 2020 when I mentioned this idea of a couch to marathon? It's just a couch to marathon. It's just a cat, like Rhonda would say. It's like just Rhonda, a couch to marathon. Yeah. Maybe we'll get 50 people to join us.
Yeah, that's true.
This is the hallmark of this ministry now. Yeah. I mean, it really is. Yes, we've got some new things about to come out with the 5K challenge, that are going to continue through the year. But I think it's been set in stone now that this is an annual thing. Yeah. And but God knew.
Yeah, He did.
Luckily we allowed Him to let this evolve, and we didn't. Luckily, we didn't in January of 2021 say, "Oh, we're only going to take 50 people." Yeah. Who knew that 1,700 were going to sign up? Yeah. Who knew that Run Club was going to swell now to almost 4,000 people? Yeah. God knew it.
He did.
So, yeah, I'm like Rhonda. I don't think we need to use that just anymore.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right, a motivational thought of the week. I do not at all understand the mystery of grace, only that it meets us where we are, but does not leave us where it found us. Wow. How cool is that? That's Anne Lamott who said that. That's an interesting, I like that. We're thankful for that. We don't have to understand it, but it's there. Sure. And we know it's there. So, all right, we are done for this week. Now, if you're part of the Couch to Marathon, that's fantastic. If you're joining us now and getting started, that's awesome.
It's not too late. Let me reiterate that. It is not too late. Really, if you join, if you are a recreational runner or walker now, you can really join for the first 8 or 10 weeks.
For sure.
If you've never run in your life, you can still join in the first couple weeks, in the next couple weeks. So it's not too late. If what you heard with Dean's story just gave you goosebumps like it did for me, go to runforgot.com, subscribe to Run Club. It's 27 cents a day. Go to the Couch to Marathon 2022 and click register, and you're in. It's really that easy.
It is.
It's really that easy.
There's going to be some hard training, some hard days.
Sure.
And the race will be hard.
Sure.
But it's going to be worth it.
Nothing worth doing is easy.
That's right. Now may God bless every step of every run. Go out there and shine your light.
Good job, Dean.
For more information about the Run for God ministry, go to runforgod.com. If you have questions about your salvation, click on the Peace with God tab. There's nothing more important. Thanks for joining us today.